from the dark stuff, perhaps not realizing that the power's in the darkness, and because it motivated and inspired you, right? So what do you say to that?
Yeah, I've had this conversation a few times recently with people from my past, and it's really interesting because I got friends who, at a young age, we were doing similar dumb shit, right? But then we've also taken this different journey and spiritual journeys and doing different things. And actually, I've got several friends like that. It's really interesting. So we have this conversation regularly, and I think it's going to those extreme ends, like these kind of polar opposites. It's kind of like an awakening. You kind of go, no, this is really fucking stupid. Right now, I've got to move in the other direction. So I think it's going to those polar ends of the spectrum that make you move in the other direction.
Got it. And the relationship now with your parents, like, what is it like with mum?
No, it's good. I've got a great relationship with them. I mean, me and my dad, we never got along for a long time because of just different personalities. We clashed. And I was very rebellious. Like, I was a little turd, like I acted out a lot. But it's because nobody understood me, right? I was an entrepreneur and nobody nurtured it and nobody understood me. But I didn't know how to deal with it when I was young. But luckily, I've been into personal development a lot, like got into that in my early 20s. And I'm really grateful I had my grandparents. They gave me some books to read and they really saw it and they nurtured me. And I think just in my early 20s, I figured out that it's just not worth fighting. Like the arguments are stupid. We're just fighting for the sake of fighting. And then 10 years ago, my parents also discovered some personal development as well. So, I think probably inspired by me in some ways, which I'm, super grateful that they followed that. So I've got a great relationship with them now. Yeah.
Awesome. And I mean, because in some ways our paths are connected. I didn't grow up on a boat, but I grew up, in a situation of not having enough and feeling that. And for me, it's children's homes and orphanages for 18 years. But the thing that really was the biggest learner for me was this thing called attachment disorder. Attachment disorder, what does it mean? It means, in short terms, the inability to go deep in relationships with your significant other because you feel like you can't trust them. So basically, a lot of kids who grow up without having someone they feel they can trust, but also people in great family structures also have this, right? But it's this feeling of like, I'm here, I'm looking after myself, I'm the only one. I'm here alone, I'll die alone, I'm in the world alone. That sort of attitude that gets you through the bullying, the racism, all of this, because you're tough, you build up, right? But then when it comes to, being vulnerable in relationships, then it trips you up, because at the time when your partner's going, well, I love this guy, I love this girl, I want to go deeply and want to connect at a deeper level. And I was like an emotional cripple. I'm like, run away, right? So does that affect you at all? Or?
100%. Like everything you're saying, completely relevant. And yes, self-sabotage, through these unconscious patterns of pushing people away, 100%. I think I'm 42 now, and yeah, I didn't have any self-awareness of that kind of stuff probably till I was about 30, I would say. And it's a never-ending journey to constantly be peeling the layers off that kind of stuff, which I am now and I expect to be forever. It's definitely something that I have struggled with in the past in intimate relationships. And for that reason, attracting the wrong people who I know are not right for me, so that I can't get hurt and all of that. Yep, you got me.
Yeah, no, I feel it, right? I feel it. And so do you love yourself now?
Yes. Yeah, like I said, it's a constant never-ending journey and conversation with myself. And I do a lot of, I'm that's what I love about my life now is I don't feel like it's so much fixing now. Like before it was like I do personal development because I feel broken, I feel something I need to fix. It's like, okay, I feel shit, I got to go do a course or I got to go do something. But now I feel like it's just all kind of weaved in together in my life, and I've kind of come to peace with the idea that it's a never-ending journey, and there's not really any place to get to. And one of my observations of people, having rubbed shoulders with some very wealthy people, very successful people doing, hundreds of millions of dollars in business, nobody's got their shit figured out. everybody's dealing with something, right? And we think that there's some place to get to, like we're going to fix ourselves and there's some place to arrive. No, there's just different levels, different scales, you know, and I really found peace in that, you know. So I think it was when I kind of got that, I could look at myself more and go, you know what, you're all right, you know. You don't have to keep trying to prove to the world. It's like, yeah, you've done all right.
And that, was there a switch, right? Because, you know, I get the sense, you know, that you're growing up, you're a bit of a rebel, right? You're probably fighting, you're probably doing that stuff. No, just feeling your energy right now. But then you went, and the thing which I love about you, right, is, you know, so, okay, so when Monty, so when you do this, I send you a little form that you fill out, right? And then that sets up like the flyer that we do, the flyer that we use.
This has nothing to do with your form, Robert.
It's everything to do with it. You wait. It's interesting because the first time I asked him, right, for a title, right, for a catchy title, your first title was all about business and achievement and da-da-da. Nothing wrong with it. It's actually great. And then you changed it. I said, hang on a second. And then with your second one, it was more about spirit.
Oh, I was just giving you options, man.
Yeah, okay. All right. I love option one, but option two is the one that twigs me.
I
right?
also knew it wouldn't matter what the title was. Yeah. You're going to take this somewhere else. So I already knew that.
So what I love, and this brings into my question, is, so you're a roughy-tufty guy, right? Was, right? So, got that. They got that. Good. All right. But then there's a switch, right? So there's a switch somewhere which allowed you to become, inverted commas, what I call spiritual or spiritually aware, which you use in a different way. But what was that switch, or what experiences led to you switching?
I don't think it was any one particular thing. I think the thing that I'm really grateful for is that when I was young, I had actually a lot of spiritual experiences. Like I saw spirits and I had weird experiences. I was always tapped into something, but I never knew what it was. Like, my grandmother, my grandparents, I could speak to them about it. Like my grandmother's died 3 times, and you know, but my parents, you know, there was never any kind of conversations around this kind of stuff. But it never really evolved. It was just something that I had in the back of my mind. So I always knew that, you know, this experience I'm having is not necessarily what I perceive it to be. Like, this is not necessarily real, right? So I kind of always had that. So in terms of a switch being flipped, no, there's been some significant moments, I guess, through personal development, through plant medicine ceremonies especially. I've done some deep shit in the jungle of Peru and stuff like that. And it's more those things compounded, some deep insights. Yeah, and relationships. I mean, the greatest teacher is relationships, for sure. Like my last relationship was the greatest teacher. Yeah.
What did you learn?
I learned what I really want for myself and a relationship is kindness. And what was shown back to me, I wasn't being kind. And I can't ask for kindness if I'm not being kind. Like ever since then, people say I'm a little bit softer, greater empathy for people. Certainly, it just changed me a lot. Yeah, massively.
Because I feel the empathy with you actually, right? So, you know, we've had some few conversations over the last few months, but it's interesting because not that I believe in what the cover is, you know, like don't believe a cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. There you go. So I look at you, maybe someone looks at you and says, see this guy who's very much in shape, sees the tats, sees the beard.
Yeah, I have a hard exterior, but when people know me, you know, they realize there's a lot of depth, and you know, from my interactions with people kind of think that I'm hard and arrogant sometimes, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with what people perceive of me because I know that once people are in my world, it's like they're gonna see the depth of me. So yeah, I don't really care what people think of me from first impressions.
Got it. And so what allowed you to drop that?
To drop drop the ego. Again, that's just like just peeling off so many layers. But probably the biggest thing is like learning to not have to keep proving myself. You know, the little kid who's just trying to fucking be somebody. You know, like I got nothing to prove, man. And it's just really opened me up to what's possible. You know, when you can just kind of drop all that and you come from a more pure place, it's like possibilities just open up and doorways open up. Yeah, I think we understand that there's things we need to work on, and we all have blockages. And like I said, nobody's got their shit figured out. We've all got stuff to work on all of the time. But when you can have such hyper awareness around this, it's like, you know, just the possibilities are just amazing. Does that answer your question in any way?
Yeah, no, but it's not even answering the question. It's just you coming and letting out whatever's there. I don't really have a mission. Like I said, I don't practice any of this. I just tune in and they come in and whatever comes out is what's supposed to come out.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah. And wow, man. Wow. You know, the thing which I keep gravitating towards are grandparents. What is it about grandparents? Like, it's like our immediate parents have got something, but our grandparents are the ones who are just on, you know, the ones which really...
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of angry at my parents for a long time, you know, like for just not understanding me. It's not like that I thought that, hey, you guys don't understand me, I'm going to be mad at you. It was just unconscious, you know, through my behavior. But my grandparents always just seemed to get me. Like my grandfather just saw from a young age, and he was teaching me some entrepreneurial things, and they had a business for 35 years, 40 years, and yeah, I don't know what it is about grandparents. I'm not sure that other people have the same experience, but I was angry at my parents for a long time, but in hindsight, it's like, man, I chose the perfect parents for what I needed to learn to be who I am today.
Lovely, man. Thank you. And the last one on this one is, you know, so you mentioned before you had some pretty significant experiences, and you mentioned some of them, but whatever comes to your mind, can you give us another significant experience?
Probably the
one that you don't want to tell.
The deepest work that I've done, like personal development work, is plant medicine stuff with shamans in Peru. I won't go into all the details, but it's deep, man. Like you have to deal with your demons, and you see, like I saw myself in a past lifetime. I watched myself get hung in a past lifetime. And look, it doesn't matter whether you believe these things or not. It doesn't matter, you know, whether you believe that thing actually happened, if you believe in past lives, but the message is the same. Like whatever the reason that message came to me, like huge lessons. And one of the big insights from many of those experiences, and the theme of probably many things for me, has been I am intuitive. I'm tapped into something, like I said, and it's something that I've kind of pushed away because my ego says you need to be successful, you need to make money, you need to be the front man, you need to do, you know, you need to be seen, right? That's what my ego has wanted. And what I really figured out over the time by dropping a lot of that is that I don't really need to. I've actually had greater success when I've allowed myself to be a guide for other people rather than needing to be the guy who's kind of seen at the front. Like, look at me, look what I've built. I'm the leader of this. And now, you know, with what I want to do in business and where I'm moving to, it's more about supporting other people. And yeah, like the podcast I'm doing now, it doesn't have any kind of marketing agenda like so many things. It's more like I just feel like doing it. So it's cool.
I understand that 100%. It's the same, you know. And so moving on to business, a little bit of business. So I'm guessing that your approach to business has changed, right? So what was your approach to business early on compared to your approach to business now?
I don't know if it was my approach, but my unconscious kind of pattern before, I guess, was needing to do everything myself, right? And you know, I always was able to build a business. I've had multiple businesses, and I was always able to monetize something, productize something, build a small team, but it always kind of seemed to hit this ceiling. And I think it was because my patterning was that because I needed to be the guy, I needed to be in everything, and I needed to control everything. And that only had me see a certain level of success. And also my personality, I guess what floats my boat, so to speak, is I like working on multiple things. Like I like having several things going on. So for me to work on one thing and then commit to that and just build that and only focus on that was very difficult for me. But I never knew that. I didn't really have that awareness. So that's why I always kind of hit the ceiling and moved on to other things. Had I been able to commit or build a team around those things, would have been different. But it was all those things that led me to have that self-awareness. And in the last 5 years, especially, I've been able to, and I think my leadership, the big difference has been also with some of the dropping of the ego has allowed me to become a much better leader. Like I've got people who have been working with me for 6 or 7 years, and I've really been able to nurture them to, be running the business. And had I not had that ability to work on my leadership and drop the ego somewhat, I wouldn't be in the position I am today. But certainly the big difference between before and now is just my capacity to put the team in place, nurture the leadership team, and have those things run without me. So that's the big difference. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other things that go in that. There's understanding systems and numbers, and and that's from a lifetime of doing stuff in business. So all those things kind of combined, but probably the biggest thing is the leadership factor, because you can have everything else figured out, but if you can't lead people, you're going nowhere. And
so if I ask you, what comes in your mind when I say conscious business?
It is, to me, a conscious business is one that has a conscious intention behind it in terms of the way, the values of the business. It's all well and good to have these fluffy written values and we want to change the world and we want to do this. But if you're not showing up with your team in this regard and you're not living those values, it doesn't really mean anything. I think where a lot of entrepreneurs go wrong in terms of wanting to make a difference and make an impact is they think that they want to change the world, which comes from a beautiful place. It's a beautiful sentiment, but I don't think it's any one of us is our job to change the world. It's our job to create the next ripple, right? So if you can carry that into your business and have that mindset of, my job today is just to make a ripple. Like who can I add value to today? And just keep it small, because when you're so focused on the big picture, it becomes overwhelming and you get this paralysis in, not moving in that direction. It's too big, but you're going to have a greater impact by just making a ripple every day. So that's probably something that I've embedded for my own life, and that's kind of through the energy of the business, I think, and that's something that I've and that to me is conscious business. It's not so much about changing the world; it's about making ripples and adding value to other people with that intent.
And like, if I asked you, what have you got left to do? What would your answer be?
Wow. I don't think I'll ever stop doing business, because I freaking love it. So I'm building I've got a project here in Bali called Lighthouse, and I'm building putting together a venture capital fund out of Singapore at the moment, which is linked to that. So my objective now is to actually put a fund together and invest into and advise in businesses that I'm aligned with in terms of not necessarily any particular industry, but certainly where there's opportunity for me to add value to them and help them grow and do things, which does have conscious intent for the betterment of the planet, I guess. Not so much with the product, but more so in the way that they're doing business, because I think that's something that kind of gets overlooked in terms of the capacity for impact. Because if you can inspire somebody through the way you're doing business, well, you don't know what that's going to trigger in somebody else, rather than, hey, look at us, look at what we're doing to change the world. So yeah, my intention is just to keep helping other people. And I've really figured out my value is as a business partner and an advisor, which is good because it gives me the space to go surfing and do whatever the fuck I feel like.
Got it. And so here, not every week, but we go through this thing. I call it the clock, right? So the clock is, 12 to 12. So 12 till 2 is like, this is, what I know that I know. I know my name. I know where I'm from. I know where I'm going, sort of. And then 2 to 4 is like, this is what I know that I'm not good at. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. And da 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 da. And then 4 to 12 is like this, like I don't know that I'm good at this thing. So with that in mind, like personally, what do you think is in your blind spot?
What's in my blind spot? I'm pretty good at understanding what I'm not good at, and I'm really, I guess I'm in a position now where I have the resources to make things happen where I don't have to do those things, which is tough when you're an entrepreneur, cause especially when you're a micro business or a solopreneur, whatever, you got to go through that. And I wouldn't have figured that out without doing all that stuff on my own and figuring everything out. But I know the things I'm not good at. But the things that I don't know that I'm good at, that's how do I?
Yeah, so
that's an interesting question.
Of course it is. Right?
You're tripping me up.
It's a double negative. So what it is, right, is it's your blind spot personally, not about business. So for example, what was in my blind spot for years was this attachment disorder. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew that I would be a year, and these relationships, the only common denominator in them was me. So it's like, fuck, there's something that's going on with me.
Yeah. So, and this has just actually recently come up, like a lot of insights kind of just dropped in really recently, more so about this idea that I don't need to be the guy at the front. I don't need to be the guy getting all the praise and look what I've done. That was my biggest blind spot for a long, long time, and I still think I've got a lot of shit to kind of work through on that. And because I trip myself up a lot, I get to see my ego a lot, but I have kind of hyper awareness around it now. That was my massive blind spot for a long time, and that's limiting. That's really limiting because it's like, what's possible when you can drop those things? It's like, wow, man, the whole world can open up. Yeah.
And then for you, so if someone said to you, like if you had three, how do I put this? Like a roadmap to start any business. There are 3 things which are super important. What would those 3 things be?
So I think entrepreneurs need to get clear on why they're in business in the first place. So one thing that I've kind of discovered a lot working with a lot of entrepreneurs, so in the outsourcing company, I've worked with about 600 or 700 businesses. And what I do is I go into their business, unpack what they're doing. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, Monty, we're looking for 2 bookkeepers. I'm like, okay, well, why do you need 2 bookkeepers? I'm not just going to recruit 2 bookkeepers for you. I'm going to go into their business, like, show me why you need 2 bookkeepers, because I actually want to help them in their business. So we might end up changing the roles. And so through that process of helping entrepreneurs unpack a lot of their stuff, and this is one of the points, I've seen that a lot of entrepreneurs don't really know where they're going. Like nearly every entrepreneur that I've ever met, they want some level of freedom. They want freedom. That's why they're doing it. But what entrepreneurs don't really realize when they start is it's not really like that, right? It's actually entrepreneurship, not entrepreneurship, right? But there are a couple of sweet spots, right? There are a couple of sweet spots, and there's sweet spots you can push through to. And when you have a big business of about 50 people, right, you have the capacity to put chiefs in place, C-suite people, and you can remove yourself from the business. That would be a sweet spot. Another one is where you've got a business of sort of 8 to 12 people, right, where you've got key players in place and the business is not too complicated, right? It's, you know, you can still do things remotely, but you got all the systems in place, and you can remove yourself to some degree. But even in that, you can't remove yourself fully, right? Or you just keep it really, really small, just you and maybe a virtual assistant, whatever, and then you work as much as you want, but you're going to be limited in terms of how much revenue you can make, you know, because you're still trading your time for dollars. So I think one thing is for entrepreneurs to understand that, what are they aiming for? Like, figure out what are you aiming for, because you can save yourself hell of a lot of heartache, right, by understanding what you're aiming for. That would be the first thing. The second thing is, which is coming back to this idea of unpacking, right? And that is constantly going through a process of deconstructing everything that you do day to day, right? Ripping it apart and having the awareness of what are you doing day to day? Like, what are you working on? And then that gives you the framework to build a team. So what generally happens when people are trying to scale and trying to build a team, they're filling gaps. They're like, okay, well, I'm too busy doing this, and then they just try to put somebody in place. But what generally happens is entrepreneurs, as they're scaling, is what I see is they're giving away the wrong things, right? So they give away the sales as an example. So an entrepreneur might say, well, I'm not the best salesperson in the world. I'm going to bring in a salesperson, right? But if you're spending 2 hours a day on your emails, 2 hours a day on your Instagram, right, and you've got 4 hours a day up your sleeve, and you 100%, as the founder, you are going to be the best person at that micro business level to sell the product. So your job is to free up your time so that you can do the activities which is most valuable to the business at that time. What does the business need at that time? And quite often, entrepreneurs get this mixed up in terms of what do I think I'm good at, and what do I want to do? Fuck that. You got to do, your job is to make money for the business, right? You got to do what is most valuable for the business at that time, right? So I think that's the other place where the second thing where entrepreneurs can do a lot better, right, is that unpacking. So imagine this. So if I said to you, unpack, deconstruct, write a list of everything that you do and give away 80% of it tomorrow, right? That would be a very difficult thing to do, right? Because you need the resources, you need the money to pay 4 or 5 people or whatever it is to give away 80% of what you're doing, right? But also it's overwhelming. You got to train people. It's a very overwhelming thought to think, I got to give away 80%. But if I said to you, could you unpack everything and give away 20% of what you're doing now to somebody? Usually the answer is always yes, right? Now, you do that 4 times in a year, you've given away 80%, right? You do that year on year, year on year on year on year, and then you end up at a point where the work now for me is me going and surfing, me going sitting in the ice bath. That's the work for me now, because I've gotten to that point where I have all those resources. So that would be the second thing. The unpacking is very, very powerful. And that's taken a lot of time. So let's count that as 3.
All right, done. I like it. So what these guys don't know, which I do know, this is one thing I do know, is you have a great routine of working in your day. Can you explain that to the guys about how you separate your day up?
To me, I don't really subscribe to the idea of balance. I don't subscribe to the idea of weekends. I don't subscribe to hump days and thank God it's Friday. To me, it's all just kind of molded in together. That's how I live my life. So I have very strict routines, I guess, in disciplines in terms of what I do in the morning.
Share them.
Okay, so that for the first hour, I do minerals. So the first thing I do when I wake up is a freshly squeezed lemon with salt, and I have Himalayan rock salt, which I bathe under the moonlight and the sun, and then some weird shit. And that's the first thing.
Love the weird shit. Love it.
And then I do movement. So for 20-30 minutes, I do movement. So mostly it's just, yoga, mobility type stretching first thing in the morning, nothing too strenuous. And then a meditation, and it doesn't have to be long. Usually my meditations in the morning are quite short, but just the first hour is always like that. Sometimes it changes, and sometimes I go to the beach and I'll meditate on the beach, and it kind of changes up a little bit, but that's generally what it looks like. I don't check my phone for the first hour and a half of the day. Like, if you want to do the most powerful thing for your life, turn off your fucking phone before you go to bed and leave it off in the morning. Like, don't be a slave to that thing. That's a discipline that I have. And then, yeah, I've got my, you know, my routines in terms of what I do move, you know, I do on average probably about 3 hours of exercise a day across the week. And you break those up, right? So you do a bit of exercise, you do a bit of work, exercise. Well, it really depends on what the surf is doing. That's like priority number one. So my days and weeks are generally ruled by Magic Seaweed Surf Report. So I kind of weave it all in around that. And look, there are times when I have important meetings in place, and I have to kind of work around that. But generally, they're kind of their second priority. Yeah. So it's more like I try to switch. I try to do lots of different kind of exercise. So surfing, I'll do mobility in the gym. I'll do Pilates classes. I'll do yoga classes. Yeah, I'll do gym. I don't do so much heavy weights these days, but yeah, I try to do as much different stuff as I can. Got it. Big question now. Is there space in your life for a partner? Yes. Okay. That's why I have the life that I have right now, Robert. Got it. Cool. So now, in a few minutes, I love that. It says, yes. It's like, so, but no, there's not a Tinder. I was about to set him up. Monty Hooke. 6'2". I'm only 6 foot. We'll add on 2 inches, mate. So if there's any questions, right, in the next couple of minutes, we'll probably go out there to you guys. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. All right, so just start to think in your mind if there's anything that I may have missed or something that's coming up for you, right? We'll get to that very, very soon. So now a few things left in my awareness. I love you, man. This is so cool. So all right. So is there anything left that you absolutely have to do before you die? I'm not saying you're going to die. The 100% the biggest thing is I have a family. That's the priority. Got it. Okay, so we've got a bit of rain coming. Let's see let's see what happens. So now, are there any questions out there? Yes. So Denise and Sue. All right. So if this rain gets very heavy, we'll stop the stream, and then we'll go straight on to the Q&A, which I think we're about to. Yeah, this looks like a big rain. All right, guys. So we can stop the live stream there, Richie, and then we'll do a Q&A inside. Thanks, everybody. So step inside. Saved by the rain. Saved by the rain. All right.